Friday, start of the weekend.
It's Friday. Yeah, it's start of the weekend, kind of coming to the end of a school year for us.
Yeah,
So yeah, life continues to move on.
it can always be a little stressful time in academics. Students want to finish up. They want to make
Yeah.
sure that they're getting what they need to get done so they can graduate or just advance in the degree. So that's
Yeah. Yeah. And exams are next week. I know a bunch of my students are pretty stressed out, which is fine because like I know when I went to college, I think that was what you
yeah.
did, right? Like you stressed out. I actually have a funny question for you about that. When you went to college, when I went to school, this was in Canada, we had 2 weeks of final exams. Did you have 2 weeks or just one?
Um, I don't think we even had a final exam week. It was
Oh,
just within the course. It wasn't like a designated week, it was the last week of class,
okay.
but it wasn't, that was all built within the regular scheduled class. You
Interesting.
know what I mean? It wasn't like we had a special schedule for finals week. So, yeah.
I wonder if that kept the stress down.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's hard. You know, the exams and the GPA, I don't know, we're going to get off on a tangent here,
Yep.
but I think sometimes that distracts from learning.
I
And
agree.
that students get zeroed in on how do I get an A in the class? How do I get this score on the test? As opposed to how do I learn the content?
Yeah.
And so really a lot of times my job I think as an instructor is I'm trying to inspire them to learn regardless of the grade. And it's hard to get past that.
Yeah, honestly, I think we have the same philosophy. I think that's the biggest challenge that we probably have in higher education. But I would say that this actually sometimes goes to triathlon, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Yep.
a tie-in here because people race and they just want to like, okay, I want to get the best possible result in the race, not thinking of the process.
Totally. And that's what this podcast is. It's not like you're going to watch anyone listening or watching to the podcast is we're not going to give a test.
Nope.
So, maybe the test is, the success on the next event. I don't know,
Right.
but I think that that's the true, passion for wanting to learn. And sometimes finals, like you're getting towards, is it can distract from that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Okay, so today we're going to switch up a little bit, and it's going to be the evidence-based duathlete.
Yeah.
So do we have a new logo? Did you do evidence-based duathlete logo?
Yeah. We're multi-sport. So,
Multi-sport. I love that.
you know,
So, John, we've talked a lot about not in the past episodes about doing different events, right? I think we talked about swim run at one point. We talked about aqua bike. We talked about just doing running races, biking races, swimming races, but we really haven't taken a deep dive into duathlon.
yeah, and duathlon, when I was starting off in multi-sport, it was biathlon. And then there was a lot of discussion about what to even call it, because biathlon is obviously connected to an Olympic sport, which happens to be a winter sport, cross-country skiing and shooting. But
Right.
the run, bike, run format, or sometimes it's a bike run, and sometimes it's a run bike format, eventually settled on duathlon as the name.
Yeah, and I don't know. We were talking a little bit off camera. When's the last time you did a duathlon?
Me, I want to say it was like 1987,
Right, right. Okay, that's
maybe 86.
yeah. And I've done several. I actually really enjoy them. Once again, it's multi-sport, right? It's what we do, just in a little bit different framework. But then again, like I've done lots of aqua bikes.
Mhm.
Um, I like them. I like aqua bikes as well. And yeah, I think that there's lots of different opportunities.
Well, and sometimes the swim gets canceled in a race
Yeah.
and you end up doing a duathlon, a bike run. And
Yeah,
so,
like well, think about this happened at Texas,
yeah,
the 70.3 Texas, just what was that, like 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks
yeah.
ago. And I did a sprint race once that was
Mhm.
changed
Yeah.
because of water quality issue. So like last minute, like actually the day before, hey, it's going to be a duathlon. And I'm like, okay, like let's go. Like I can do that.
Yep.
In the early days of my triathlon career, I always hoped that would happen
Hmm.
because swimming was my, when it was a weakness. Now I don't feel like swimming is so much a weakness of mine, so I don't think that that's actually really helping me anymore.
Yeah.
But it does happen that you would be signing up for triathlon and then ending up doing a duathlon, or you could just focus on doing a duathlon. And it's a really interesting thing because I think sometimes duathlons, aqua bikes, whatever, are thought of as less than. And I don't understand why, right? Because
Hmm.
bike racing is a thing, running's a thing. When we combine them, it's not as good as doing a triathlon. But if I was to go do a running race or a bike race, that would be seen as potentially, I don't know, better.
Hmm.
So what do you think it is about the culture of multisport that looks at like aquabike and duathlon or aquathon as being maybe less than?
I definitely get the same sense as you, but that's often why I like to describe what we do as multi-sport,
Yeah,
because it's not I don't want to just be a triathlete. I
right.
want to be someone that does triathlon or does multi-sport, and being able to have that flexibility, that range to do a variety of events, whether it's a swim only, a bike only, or a run only, or some combination of those, or a combination of other things. Even adventure racing, and
Yep.
I've talked with some other athletes about doing some of that with kayaking and canoeing within the multi-sport. So I think, to keep us as broad as possible as athletes and as people, multi-sport is the right way to think of it. And all these different events are different options.
Yeah, I agree. And a few weeks ago we talked about sprint racing and people saying, "Oh, I'm just doing a sprint
Yeah.
race." I've heard the
Hmm.
same with aquabike and with a duathlon. "Oh, I'm just doing a duathlon." Well, you're
Hmm.
still like you're doing it and you're doing it hard and you're racing. And so I think we need to be, or not need to be, I would suggest people to be more open-minded about these things. And
Yeah.
um, like a few years ago, I was having a lot of shoulder problems and
Hmm.
I just couldn't swim. I couldn't put the volume in as much as I wanted, so I signed up for a duathlon. I didn't feel bad about it. That's where I was at the time.
Hmm.
And this summer I'm focusing one of my races is actually on a sprint distance duathlon.
Yeah.
And I really want to do my very, very best in that race. And there's no shame in it. Like there's a triathlon at the exact same time,
Hmm.
but I want to do the duathlon because I want to kind of test myself in something different.
Hmm.
And I don't, I personally don't feel it's like less than.
No, I love it. And so you've done more specific duathlons than
Mhm.
I have. So I want to sort of pick your brain
Yeah.
on this. So start with what makes duathlon uniquely
Yeah.
challenging to triathlon.
So it's weird, right? Because in triathlon, we run last. And it's a very special feeling, or not special, but a unique feeling getting off the bike and running. Running and then getting on the bike is a completely different feeling. And in the duathlons that I've done, it's the first run, people go really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And which I expect, right? If I go do a 5K or a 10K or whatever race, people are going to go hard. They race like that speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say most duathletes, high-end ones, are at like 98% of their 5K or 10K split, finishing that and then hitting the bike. Okay. And so that's a different kind of feeling that you've never felt before, especially if you're going really, really hard. Yeah, that actually was my biggest surprise the first time. It's like I kind of felt people would maybe ease into it. Like, we've talked about like pacing and easing into a swim. There was no easing in. This was like full throttle right from the first step, all the way through either the 5K or the 10K. And so I think that's I don't know, I think that's pretty unique to have that feeling. And if you haven't tried it, like do a 5K and bring your bike and try and get on your bike after you go all in for a 5K after and they're super fast transitions in duathlon because you're not wet and you're not like dealing with all the swim stuff. So like within a minute, get on your bike and then ride it hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different feeling.
No, I love it. Well, why talk about that a little bit in terms of the pacing. So
Yep.
you obviously have the run. Most duathlons are run, bike, run.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so in the runs that of the duathlons you've done, are they equal distances or are
No,
they?
they're typically the first run's longer and the second run's shorter. So standard distance, the national championship is next week. So standard distance triathlon or duathlon is 10K run, 40K bike, and then a 5K run.
Hmm,
And then the sprint distance that I'm going to do this summer, it is 5K run, 20K bike, so 12 miles, and then a 2.5K run. So normally the second run is like half of the first run.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you asked a little bit about like the pacing. It would depend too. Like, so sprint, this is actually a unique thing in most duathlons. Sprint distance tends to be draft legal,
Okay.
whereas standard distance is typically not draft legal. So then pacing goes completely different in a draft legal versus a non-draft legal.
Hmm. Okay, so how does the start work for a typical duathlon nowadays?
It's just like doing a running race. Everyone
Mhm,
kind of lines up in a corral. Now, at like the big races, maybe like at US Nationals, they might have women go at one time and men go at another, but it's usually not, they usually don't have enough participants to like completely separate out the age groups. And
mhm,
the World Championship, they separate out the age groups. And
yeah,
like this group goes now, and then 5 minutes later, kind of like
yeah,
traditionally used to do in triathlon. Um, because it gets spread out. Like you, especially at like standard distance, a 10K will spread you out,
yeah, yeah.
right?
And are you timed chip time or is it
Yep.
gun time?
It would depend on the race.
Okay,
It's
okay,
because yeah, it does depend on the race. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because I'm thinking if you're doing just a flat out start go, that's like a mass start in the
Yeah.
swim. Those
Yeah.
mass starts are gun time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So yeah, it does depend. I've
okay,
done both.
okay. Hmm. Okay, so then how do you approach the race strategically, knowing the second run's going to be a little different?
Yeah. So this is, I mean, when we were talking about pacing in endurance sports, we started to think about like I always look at like how long is it going to take me?
Hmm.
Right? Like the total time. So we start breaking this down. Let's say you run a 45-minute 10K. So, fast, but not super fast. I'm just going to give you some numbers. And then maybe your bike is like 115. Well, then you still got to do a 5K. So that's maybe 20, 25 minutes. So when you're adding this up, it's over 2 hours, right? We're looking at 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2.5 hours. This is a serious thing. Like, this is if you thinking about like going high level aerobic for over 2 hours, that's like, I don't know, it's very similar to running like an Olympic distance triathlon. And so like fueling strategies and pacing strategies need to be respectful of the distance and the time.
Hmm.
Because the truth is you cannot go all out for the entire thing,
Yeah.
right? Like this is like I saying, hey, I'm going to go all out for a marathon. You just can't do it. So learning how to pace in a duathlon is probably just the same as learning how to pace in a longer distance triathlon. Like I said, most people super high, very close to their threshold for the first run, and then some athletes will kind of back it off on the bike.
Hmm.
And because the difference between like a running and a biking, in a bike, you actually have points where you can coast. Right. In my experience, the coasting, so if you get little downhills in a duathlon, it's
Hmm.
way, way, way more significant
Yeah.
because you can actually, it's the first time you can actually just kind of rest a little bit.
Hmm.
And you see some power profiles of some of the like higher end duathletes. There's a lot of zeros
Okay.
on, especially early on. Like if there's a downhill early on, they get up to speed and they're not going to continue to pedal for the most part. At least the ones the power profiles I've seen. So, and you're in a supported position, right? You're on your arms. You can actually get a little bit of rest there. And then we're looking at like pacing for the standard distance. Most people are like 90% of FTP on the bike.
Hmm.
So like it's pretty high, but like not full out. Like if it was once again, if it's a 40K time trial, you're gonna go harder. but there's a cumulative fatigue that actually happens, right? Like there's always a cost to going
Mhm.
that first 10K or that first 5K. Probably more so if you're doing the standard distance of the 10K first. And you got to pay the fiddler at some point.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm quickly jotting down some questions because you're raising some issues that I'm really interested in. Again, I've only did the one serious duathlon. And actually, thinking back, it was called the triathlon, even though it was a run bike run. So that's how early this was.
Okay.
Okay. So you're talking about the interaction between the three events: the run, the bike, the run. Training wise, we do bricks in triathlon, bike run. Do
Uh-huh.
you incorporate a run bike brick into your
Okay.
training?
So if I was coaching somebody that was doing a duathlon,
Hmm.
if they were inexperienced, yes. But if they're more experienced, probably no. But John, we haven't talked too much about this. I actually am not a proponent of doing brick training in
Hmm.
advanced triathletes.
Right.
I just think the risk of injury is so great that
Hmm.
running fatigued is pretty dangerous. I used to do bricks, and I think maybe even like I would look at, yeah, how advanced you are, but also I don't know. There's lots of idiosyncrasies, but in general, I'm not a fan of doing bricks. So yeah, if someone was new to duathlon, I'll say, hey, let's do some bricks so you can actually feel what it feels like to run and then
Hmm.
bike.
Yeah.
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 So
I'm like you, for triathlon bricks. I do short runs after bike ride, 2 miles.
yeah,
Yeah, the long runs of doing 10 miles after a long bike ride. Yeah, I agree with you. The risk of injury is too high to be able to include those.
and once again, like most people that I work with and myself, like we're age groupers, right? We're
Yeah,
older.
yeah.
Like what I think if I was coaching a 20-year-old, maybe up to like 30, 35, they're
Hmm.
a lot more tend to be more resilient, and maybe a brick might be a thing. But
Hmm.
I don't like the idea of just adding fatigue to add fatigue.
Yeah.
And I don't know, John, maybe you know the research better than I do, but I've never seen any published research on people doing bricks versus not doing bricks and their success or not success, or
Yeah.
even honestly, like, my thought process around injury risk is injury risk higher?
Yeah.
Truly, I mean, I don't, I there's not enough research in this area that I'm aware of.
No, but and you mentioned it before, there is a learning aspect
Yeah,
to transitioning between sports, and it is good to learn how to transition between sports, but
yeah,
getting that physiological training stimulus, I think that's what the bricks are really about for me, is learning,
yeah.
motor learning more so than physiological adaptations, what have you.
I'd say
Okay.
a practice race would be even better.
Yeah, 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 right.
Right? Like actually do like a C race or something like where you're actually closer to your limit
Mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm,
get that feeling. Like do a few races that really don't like every race matters, but those doesn't matter as much potentially.
mm-hmm. Well, our
Because
tri club races
yeah, our
allow
tri club
people to
races
do
are
triathlon.
perfect for
So,
that,
yeah.
right? To learning what it feels like. Because it's really a hard thing. Okay. And I'll throw this out with my brick theory as well. Okay, let's say we're 70.3 racing. And are we really going to go 2.5 hours at 85% of FTP
Mm-hmm,
and then run?
mm-hmm,
Like the feeling is different, right? Like
mm-hmm.
I used to do a lot of bricks. It doesn't feel the same as coming off when you're racing.
That's it.
So if you're trying to learn what it feels like, you probably have to do practice races.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. So race often.
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked strategically about the bike ride, and you mentioned that some of the bike rides are even downhill at
Yeah.
first. So with triathlon, because the water is typically a low point, you almost always have some uphill coming out of transition.
That's
So it's
true.
very common, unless it's a flat race, but because water is always going to be in a low point, you've got to come out of that low point, whether it's in transition or on the bike ride. So it's not uncommon. So when you scout a course, what do you start looking for in terms of the bike start and the bike finish?
Okay, so I'm gonna turn this back around. And almost all duathlons are held at the same time as a triathlon and the same
Oh, okay.
exact.
There you go.
No. So you probably have exactly the same.
Mhm,
I I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I've done the one of the duathlons I did was there was no lake, there was no pool. It was only a duathlon because the
mhm,
place was there was just no access to water.
right.
So in that case, it would be different. But most of the duathlons are associated with a triathlon.
Mhm,
And so, yeah, it's typically the same. Like you said, like you're probably gonna have to climb out. Mind you, I guess if you're in the Midwest or Florida or wherever it's really flat, it's just gonna be, yeah, flat.
mhm, mhm. All
Yeah.
right, cool. All right. Drafting, you mentioned that duathlons often allow drafting, but this must not be the case for when it's a combined event.
Right. Well,
Uh,
sometimes, so once again, the one I'm doing this summer, it's draft legal, and there's a triathlon going on at the same time. So I don't know how they're gonna do it.
wow, interesting.
Like, maybe, and honestly, I haven't looked closely enough at it. Maybe it's like an hour later or something. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Different
don't
time
know.
start.
So I mean, actually, let's talk really quickly about draft legal racing just in general. Like very
Mhm,
few age group triathletes do draft legal triathlon to begin with.
mhm,
All obviously, we see this in the World Triathlon Series or the WTS, and we see it in the Olympics. It's all draft legal.
mhm.
But I mean, I think I've done one draft legal triathlon.
Okay.
So I'm actually once again, I'm really excited for this, but that is going to completely change the run theory, right?
Oh,
Like, because you think about it, like the one I'm doing, it's 5K to start, and then it's draft legal after that. So if you can stay with a group
mhm,
coming off of the first run, it might be very advantageous, right? Or I'm game planning this. What if I'm 15 seconds ahead?
mhm.
Is it smart just to go off by myself, knowing that if there's a group of five or six behind me, they're going to work together and
Yep.
I'm going to work super hard and get overtaken. So
Mhm.
like there's a lot of thought process that goes into draft legal
Yeah.
racing. And the difference in duathlon in particular is you can see the people when you're running a lot easier than if you're coming out of the water.
Mhm.
Like you come out of the water in a draft legal race, you really don't know who's around you. You don't know much. Like you
Mhm.
get to the transition, you're focused on that. You might not know till you're really riding and you can look back like what's going on. But in a run, you could look back, right? So I've kind of been game planning some of the stuff in my own head about what do you do? Like what do you do if you're ahead by a certain amount or behind by a certain amount? Because if you get into that T2 and you're in a group, it's pretty advantageous potentially.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
biking in a group is much easier than
It's
going solo.
yeah. And then same thing, like if everyone's kind of this going at the same pace and you're in a group and you still have a 2.5K run in the last little bit of the bike, is it worth breaking away and
Mhm.
getting your 10 or 15-second lead? I mean, these are like questions that are live that are going to happen basically in any draft legal race. Yeah.
So, I've watched the Olympics and they're draft legal and you see packs forming.
Yep.
Do you really see that in the duathlons that you've done?
In the sprint legal ones,
Hmm.
only done one. So,
Okay.
in the one I did, I mean, I don't want to like brag or whatever, but like there was no one near me. Like
Yeah, right,
I was
right.
on my own.
Hmm.
There was a pack behind me and they never caught me.
Yeah. Hmm.
So yes, I assume like at the bigger races. So the one I'm doing this summer is the Canadian National Championship. So I'm
Okay.
assuming it's going to be some like it's going to be a pretty big thing. And I'm guessing, but once again, I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, right. Well, your game day decisions are going to have to
Yeah,
be.
but I think like part of that is like, we talk about all the racing we do, many start lines and gaining experience every single time.
Yeah.
And this will be once again a new experience for sure.
So practicing group rides,
Huh.
are you doing that? Is that something that you
No,
look at?
I hate group rides.
Yeah. It's all a matter of trusting other people around you.
Yeah, like, I know we talked a while ago about my accident. Well, that was because I was with other people. Someone crashed and I crashed.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
makes me really like, it makes me very nervous. Like
Yeah.
I see these groups out and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 15 people and they're so tight together. If somebody
Hmm.
crashes,
Yeah.
you're all going down.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't know, like I'm good with one or two people,
Yeah.
and that's about it. So we'll see.
Well, we talked earlier before we started here, different bikes. So
Yep.
draft legal, you cannot use a typical time trial
Right.
triathlon bike.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the other thing with the draft legal racing and duathlon. You have to ride a road bike, which
But you
is
can
fine.
still put bar extenders on.
Yeah, there's rules.
Yeah, or mini
You're
ones.
allowed certain distance to the
Yeah.
hoods now. Honestly, my I won't have him. Like
Hmm.
it's to me, I think the advantage of having that little tiny bit, especially mine is a sprint race, and
Hmm.
it's gonna be quite hilly.
Eddie Merckx it.
Pardon me?
Yeah, Eddie Merckx it.
Eddie Merckx
When
it.
you do a time trial on a road bike,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's Eddie Merckx style. So I love it. Oh, that's great. Okay, so how about fueling?
Yeah, let's talk about the standard distance again. So that 2.5 hour, 220-ish. So I would approach it like an elite marathoner almost, right?
Mm,
Like we have to get calories in.
yeah.
And the once again, the advantage is on your bike, you can get calories in on the bike. It's sometimes on the run, you might be able to, right? Maybe get a gel in. So, this goes back to very similar to Olympic distance triathlon. Every 45 minutes, every 30 minutes, whatever, a gel and or drinking calories, especially on the bike, right? Like I'm assuming most of these races are going to have aid stations for a 10K. So you might get two aid stations. So might get a little bit of water, might get a little bit of Gatorade or whatever, but you have to respect the distance. And yes, we talked about this many times. You can absolutely race this distance without any nutrition, but you don't want to.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So whatever the normal plan is, I think, as far as that, like, once again, most people are somewhere between every 30 and 45 minutes having a gel or 25 grams of carbohydrates or more. Obviously, 60 to 90 is kind of the new standard per hour.
Yeah.
And I'd look to that as well. I think the bigger issue, honestly, is most people when they swim are nowhere near their threshold heart rate,
Hmm.
right? Like in a 70.3 swim, I look at my heart rate, I'm like, how is that only 140? I felt horrible.
Yeah.
And then I get on the bike and I'm at 155, 160. These people, you're starting out at maximum on a duathlon, once again, you're almost maximum. So you probably are going to have a lot harder time bringing food in
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
bringing gels in. So maybe this becomes more of a thing of liquid at that
Yeah.
point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then, speaking of metrics, what are you
Yep.
watching, I guess, really for the bike? I mean, what metrics are you paying attention to when you're trying to pace here?
Well, let's say the non-drafting one.
Mhm.
So the standard distance, I think it's pretty similar to Olympic triathlon. Picking, a power number that you think is sustainable for the time, but
Mhm.
it still leaves you with a little bit because once again, you have to race a 5K afterwards.
Yeah.
So the numbers that I kind of think about is like 90% of FTP. Um, and then, like once again, I'm not a super big fan of heart rate when I race. So that would be maybe a goal for me would be like about 90%. But then I would also be paying attention to the physiology side.
Mhm.
If I'm feeling super fatigued and can't catch my breath, and maybe you have to back it off. If I'm feeling a little bit better, maybe I push a little bit harder. But yeah, I think 90 to 95% of FTP on the bike. And then when it comes to that second run, um, you're not you're once again, you can't think of, well, what's my 5K PR,
Yeah. Right.
right? Because you're not going to do it. You've been racing now for almost 2 hours at pretty close to your threshold. So I think this is where knowing what your threshold is,
Mhm.
and once again, not FTP even, like what's your threshold that you can exercise at for 2.5 hours, is really, really critical to getting off the bike. And that next 5K is, and I hate to say this because it's like, we're trying to instruct people a little bit here, but knowing the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
I'm at threshold. I can hold this for that amount of time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that this is more of an advanced thing that I've done it in 70.3 racing, and I've done it in Olympic racing, is if I'm seeing my heart rate slowly go up, I'm going too fast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I should be able to get it level and just hold it.
Yeah.
And yes, I get it. Like in long distance racing, as we get hotter and more dehydrated, but I'm saying like within the first K of that second 5K, if my heart rate is like, I don't know, it's 160 when I start, then it goes 161, 162, 163. I'm looking at that and I'm looking down, oh, 167, 168. Oh, I am going too fast because
Mm-hmm.
now I'm no longer at a steady state. I'm actually um past probably that lactate turn point, the second lactate turn point.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Mm-hmm.
that does that resound?
Yeah. Yep. No,
Yeah.
totally. Um, all right, speaking of, you're touching on tactics as well. How about where do transitions fall in terms of
Yeah.
importance?
They're super fast,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you think about it, like the first one, you're literally running as part of your 10K. Like, yes, you're going to go through a mat, but there's no slowing down. But
Mm-hmm.
you're not like, especially in the first one, you're not running with a bike. So you're going to get to your bike and you're going to be, I don't know. It's a completely different feeling to running wet and out of a swim,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you got running legs.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to respect that it's like you're coming in, you're coming in hot to your bike, right? And that being said, once again, you're not wet. Your feet aren't a problem. You're wearing socks, by the way, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not,
Why not?
why not? You're starting with
Mm-hmm.
socks. You
Yep.
got socks
Mm-hmm.
on. It's not, you're not sitting
Yep.
there putting your socks on. Although I do know some do athletes that don't wear socks, but
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
just their own preference. But you got socks on already. So the switch is actually really, really quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're wearing same thing, elastic laces. The one thing I will tell you is you got to be more careful about where you put your run shoes,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because you
right?
got to put them
Because you're
on.
gonna have to put them back on.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I get out of the swim, I like throw my wetsuit here and I put my goggles. I'm not putting them on again,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the
Mm-hmm.
shoes, your running shoes, you're putting them on again.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be really conscious of like you don't want them like out into like where other people are running. Someone maybe like kicks it.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of got to hide your shoes a little bit because it's critical that
Yeah.
you have those shoes again. I do know some duathletes that actually have a second pair of shoes
Okay.
for
Pair of
the
running shoes. Yeah.
yeah. So they've got one for their 10K, one for their 5K.
Okay.
I don't know if that's so much of a thing now with the super shoes, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm actually going to have to ask somebody if that's a thing. But I know historically it was a thing because like once thing they'd have a 5K shoe and a 10K shoe.
Mm. Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
so the T1 is super super fast,
Mm-hmm.
and then in triathlon normally T2 is pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same thing, like you don't have much to change. You're racking your bike, take your helmet off, take your
Right.
shoes
Right.
off, put the other shoes on, and you're gone.
Mm.
And then because that second run or that last run is short, it's a 5K. It's kind of like once again, it's like sprint racing. Like, are you going to take the time to put a hat on? Are you going to take the time to put a visor on, sunglasses? Like what?
Mm.
Those are seconds that
Mm-hmm.
are potentially lost. Once again, I guess it depends on your situational awareness.
Yeah.
A lot of these races are like out and backs, and if hey, I got a 2 minute lead, maybe then it changes. Or if someone's like right behind you, those time is valuable in transitions, John. Like
Mm.
this, and I'll tell you this when I was talking to an athlete a couple of weeks ago about that. Like if you give up 30 seconds in a sprint race um, transition,
Mm-hmm.
that's six. No, that's what is that? That's 10 seconds per mile
Mm-hmm.
of the run.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know about you, but when I'm running and I'm at like let's say I'm 7 minutes a mile, to go 650 hurts.
Right.
Right. And just by dilly-dallying around in the transition, 30 seconds can be lost really fast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and I think in duathlon, because there's such less to change, especially in the T1, it becomes more critical.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, so then how does and I don't mean the rink order here, but
Yep.
how does doing duathlon help triathlon, and how does triathlon help duathlon? To you either way.
I think they go hand in hand. to be
Hmm.
honest with you. But once again, we've talked about this before. I think doing time trials on your bike
Yeah.
is very advantageous for you. Doing 5Ks, 10K runs is advantageous for you. And I just think this is another quiver, right? Like if there's an opportunity to do a duathlon and it comes to your way, like why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
I think it can only help, right? Like
Hmm.
it's once again, it's just a different training. It's a different training stimulus, but in many ways it's the same.
Yeah.
And I would also say that, if you're training for triathlon anyways, there's no like triathlon's only going to help duathlon.
Hmm. Hmm.
And even some of the duathletes that I know that are primary duathletes, some of them still like they swim.
Yeah.
And they look at it. I'm doing cross training,
Hmm.
getting more aerobic training in without putting more stress on my legs.
No, I love it. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I like that. Another quiver. Uh,
Yep,
and you need to have a full range of multi-sport, and I think that makes you a better athlete overall, and whichever area you want to focus in on. Okay, advice that you would give someone who's going to do a duathlon.
I think if it's their first one or
Yeah,
just
maybe it's maybe it's the first one. Yeah,
yeah, I think a first one is to respect the first run,
yeah, yeah.
right? And don't think of it like as a 10K. Like you
Mhm.
actually have to dial back just a little. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a whole bunch, but you have to respect it because if you go all in on that first one, you'll be just hanging on your bike. And um, you'll see this out at like the high level duathlons where people they have no power.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And these people that got an FTP of like 275 watts and they're doing like 175.
Oh boy.
And well, because think about like how you feel after you race a 10K.
Yeah, yeah, right.
You can go all in on a 10K and be
Sure.
devastated. And I think sometimes in duathlon in particular, because everyone starts at the same time, it's easy to see where you're ranking,
Hmm.
right? Hey, those guys are just up the road from me. And
Yeah.
even if it's non-draft legal, right? Like those guys are just up the road from me. I can go all in for these last couple of kilometers and potentially like close them down and catch them.
Hmm.
Um, and we could ride as once again, a draft legal or sorry, a draft illegal legally,
Yeah,
right?
right, right, right.
Um, and not realize that they went too far and too
Mm,
too deep on that first run. So that would be that. It's really easy to go too hard on the first run.
love it.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's kind of fun to talk about something a little bit different and expand your mental horizon. But then, John, also like we said, like expanding your physical horizon. And I keep looking at these USAT stuff where they have like the cross triathlon and there's
Mhm.
the mountain bike triathlon.
Gravel
There's now the
racing.
gravel
Yeah,
triathlon.
that's right.
And then the winter ones. And I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I want to start doing some of these
Yeah,
things. And now the problem is I'm really bad on a mountain bike, but I think I could I think I could figure it out. But
yeah,
I'd really like to do some of the winter ones where you're doing like the
yeah.
cross country skiing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, like I think triathletes we get very set in our ways and very
Hmm.
limited to experiences because it's not truly triathlon. But yeah, I personally I want to do more like different things. And
Yeah.
speaking of different, like even a triathlon, like we in the summer we host that super sprint triathlon.
Hmm.
That people love that.
They did. It goes to change, yeah, I think broadly we should describe ourselves as multi-sport and then embrace
Yeah.
that multi-sport mindset.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's because really, like, why are we doing triathlon, right? I mean, personally, I'm doing it for like the social aspect, but it's the
Hmm.
health aspect,
Hmm.
right? If I change the modality of what I'm
Yeah.
doing, I'm still like, trying, I'm still being healthy.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that it is a mindset thing.
No, I love it. Yeah, no, there's a lot of lore with triathlon, and that's the sort of where some things really spread out from. But I think being able to expand and have different experiences ultimately makes you a better triathlete. So
Agreed.
I'm all in on multi-sport.
Me too. Me too.
Hey, good talking.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, John. Have a great weekend. We have a triathlon this weekend too, so we'll see
We
you up
do.
there on Sunday,
Sunday, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Have a
Bye.
good weekend. See you Sunday.